Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of this mini-series, Your Multidimensional Self. This time we are looking at consciousness. And before we do, just to remind you, I'm Athena Melchizedek, your host, and I would love to invite you to come into a comfortable seated position, perhaps switching off any distractions, bringing yourself to full presence, taking a few deep breaths just to settle you in, and just becoming open to receiving this transmission. So off we go. So let's have a look at what is multidimensionality. So dimensions are a means of organizing different planes of existence according to their vibrational frequency. Consciousness represents awareness. The inhabitants of each dimension function clearly, easily, and with a minimum of resistance within that particular plane, because their consciousness is vibrating in resonance with the frequency of that dimension. So, multidimensional consciousness is the ability to be conscious of more than one dimension. To be multidimensional in our consciousness, we must remember that we have within us the potential to expand our perception to the dimensions both above us and below us. And when I say above and below, remember once again that all of these fields are nesting within each other. So it is not a linear above or below, really. It's only numerically above or below, but remember that they're nesting within each other, all these different levels. And it's through our awareness that we are able to access those different planes of existence. So I hope that's clear. And just to remind you of those different planes that we saw in the last episode. So these again are to remind you the fields of energy associated with the human being. This is the human energy field and its various frequencies. 9 feed into specific points on the physical body, and 6 are outside the body. And all are portals into a different level of awareness or consciousness. And again, just to remind you what those are in a different way of presenting it. Each dimension is a frequency band and is associated with a certain color. And again, we can see that some are feeding into the physical body and some are outside the physical body. But they are portals to other dimensions of our being. So science now is supporting the premise that manifested energy and consciousness are not separate. And it has been evidenced by several scientists that matter is ordered by thought and intention. This means that energy and consciousness are inextricably linked. Science is also telling us that everything is entangled and interacts with instant communication. We saw that in the last presentation. It is also telling us that DNA emits, absorbs, stores, and transforms coherent light. And this is projected out to create a living energetic matrix upon which rests the physical body. So this is how now we're connecting our energy body via the DNA to the physical body. Science is also telling us that our genes and our DNA are modulated by sound and light energy, and that their energetic environment determines how they operate. So I just want to show you now how the fields of energy relate to our consciousness. So how the different dimensions actually relate to our consciousness. Here you can see that at the personality, the physical level of our being, which is the personality and the ego, the emotional and mental body, are dimensions 1 to 3, and the first 3 chakras, the first 3 energy centers. Dimensions 4 to 6 are the transpersonal or soul consciousness. Dimensions 7 to 9 represent the monadic consciousness or the oversoul or spirit. And dimensions 10 to 12 bring us to unity consciousness or avatar consciousness or Christ consciousness. Again, there are so many different descriptors. I can't include them all, but I try to do my best. So now we're just going to see from this diagram how the different types of matter are related to those different levels of consciousness. So we have levels 1, 2, and 3 based in physical matter, which is carbon base. And this relates to our physical body and our mental body and our etheric body, which is the substrate of the physical body, and the emotional body. So this is the whole identity, where we have the conscious, the subconscious and unconscious mind, the feelings and emotions. This is levels 1, 2, and 3, and pertain to the first 3 chakras of the body that we saw in the other diagram. Levels 4, 5, and 6 pertain to the soul level or the transpersonal level, and the substance, the matter, is etheric substance based in a carbon and silica base. The consciousness associated with this level of our being is to do with the heart, the throat, and the third eye, and the first phase of awakening as the heart opens and the higher will begins to override the ego, and a polarity synthesis starts. Level 7, dimension 7, 8, and 9 refers to the monadic or group soul level, and this is another etheric substance, a lighter etheric substance, which is 100% silica base. The consciousness that pertains to this embodies the higher will and our purpose, and we're becoming aware of group will here, the group monad, the group soul. And then at the highest level, 10, 11, and 12, where the matter becomes hydroplasmic liquid light. And this pertains to the avatar level of consciousness, which is actually unity consciousness. And it's the third phase of our full awakening. Well, there can be many different phases, to be honest, but these are the main groupings. But within each grouping, there can be very different phases. These 1, 2, and 3 are the main phases. And above that, we have the dimensions 13, 14, and 15, which pertaining to the earth and to the sound fields. And this is thermoplasmic light, which is, I guess, the type of matter. And that pertains to the level of consciousness, which is the universal mind, and the primal sound fields of divine will, divine love, divine intelligence. So I'm trusting this makes some sense to you. So now we're going to look at how consciousness creates our external reality. And so we come to the morphogenetic field. So remember that all fields of energy hold information. So the morphogenetic field of any species, including the human species, holds the information of the collective history of humanity since its inception. It holds the whole history of our species. Russian physicist Peter Garayev has evidenced that we are connected to this field via our DNA. He also evidenced that our DNA can be changed by coherent light and sound. These are phenomenal scientific discoveries, phenomenal experiments. So, our whole personal soul history is actually in our DNA and our energetic DNA. It's transferred to our physical DNA when we begin our journey, our physical journey in utero, when the information is coming in via the energetic DNA. So the DNA holds the genetic blueprint from parents and ancestors and is informed by the information held in the morphogenetic field of the species. Only 2 to 3 strands are activated in most human beings. But there are at least another 10 energetic strands not activated, because remember, we saw all those dimensions and the dimensions that are available to us in this universal matrix. So the other strands that are not activated in the average human are available to be activated. And when they are activated, this is done via expanded consciousness. So as we expand our awareness, and remember, we do this by creating more light in our system, because the higher frequencies of our system create or exist, have more light. They are vibrating at a faster frequency, and more photons of light are being created as we expand our consciousness. I'm hoping it's all beginning to make a bit more sense. So this is our DNA and holding the blueprint for everything. So the information is then projected out by our consciousness to form our physical reality. And I just want to make the point that I forgot to make on the previous slide, that as well as all the information about our species and our ancestors and the whole blueprint, it also contains the DNA, the energetic DNA also contains all the distortions held by those ancestors, by our parents, by the entire collective. So we have all of that within us also. It's a very important point to remember. So the information is projected out by our consciousness to form a physical reality. It's all really going on within us, but we think it's outside ourselves because we are so invested in the physical material world and the info that is coming in via our senses. So can you see how we get into distortion at all? Because we are getting information within our own being about our own being and about all the dimensions that are possibly could be available to us. But we are so really directed outside ourselves. We're so impressed with the physical reality, or what we think is physical reality, that we are more concerned about what is going on outside ourselves and being given the information via our physical 5 senses. So what is going on within and within the different layers of our energy field and the different aspects of our consciousness that could be available to us, we can shut that off because we are so involved with the physical dimension. And also the other things that prevent us from accessing this information are distortions within our own field. Remember, I said that all the distortions of our ancestry, of our parental ancestry, and further back than that, the distortions of the whole human race are within our own DNA. So all of this points to the fact that we are truly an incredible miracle. It's really incredible. The other thing I just want to mention, that the energetic template that forms the physical body starts to inform the physical body as it gathers itself when it's in utero. So we're being fed in utero by the food and substance that mother is bringing us, but also by the energetic template and all the information that is coming in as we grow and as we develop. And this creates our energetic template. What is it? The information that is in the DNA. So we're truly, truly a miracle. And this is even more of a miracle, morphogenesis. This means that we can change our destiny. This is what I was referring to when I was speaking a little earlier about the fact that light and sound can modulate our DNA. And this has been evidenced by the Russian physicist Peter Garyev. So we don't have to any longer think that we're stuck with our genetic inheritance. Not at all. We can modulate our DNA. Incredible. So, the entire human being arises out of his or her own consciousness. We are a hologram. We're literally a hologram. We are an encoded light projection. That is a hologram. We are the projection of our own consciousness. Consciousness comes first, then the energetic template based on the DNA. Then the physical body coalesces around this as it develops in the womb. As the soul descends into the lower densities or frequencies, its karmic inclinations attract in from the species morphogenetic field physical-like energy stroke matter information into the DNA. So as it's coming through the energy grids, its own karmic inclinations, and that means what is the information about its ancestry, its information about the parents, and it's attracting in from the field, from the morphogenetic field of the species holding that information. It also arranges with whom it will initially interface. So this is the soul now, has already arranged all of this before it comes into the physical dimension. It arranges with whom it will initially interface in the physical dimension, i.e. the family who will bring these karmic inclinations to the surface rapidly for transmutation or for further crystallization. So this literally means we choose our parents. The soul chooses which family it will be born into, which set of beings are going to give it the best chance of bringing to the surface that which needs transmuting. Or alternatively, those beings which are going to embed the distortion even further. It really depends on what we choose and how we choose to overcome the challenges of our family conditioning. So the type of consciousness changes the manifestation of the energy. And this image really is just purposed to show you this. If the consciousness is dark and distorted, then this is the type of energy it creates or it brings forth. If it's light and bright and joyous and full of love, then we create the opposite. So we then experience the world through the 5 physical senses, as I've said before, and those senses bring us the information that becomes our thoughts, our attitudes, our beliefs, and our conditioning about how we think the world is. So let's really look at consciousness. So the brain is a holographic processor. It is not the home of our consciousness. Many people seem to think for some reason that our consciousness is in our brain, but it is not. The brain is simply a processor. Let's have a look at this. This is our brain, and these are the functions of the different areas of the brain. The mammalian complex, the human complex, the reptilian complex, all with different functions. But none of them store our consciousness. The brain is a processor. It's actually like a supercomputer. If you can imagine all 7 or 8 billion people now with a handheld calculator performing a calculation every 5 seconds for 60 hours. Supercomputers can perform the same amount of calculations performed for 60 hours in just 1 second. It would take 3 of these supercomputers wired together to match just one neural net firing in the human brain. This is the profundity of who we are. Neuroplasticity means we can change. A neural net is a piece of brain the size of a grain of salt that contains 100,000 neurons and 1 billion synapses. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. It allows the neurons, and the neurons are simply nerve cells in the brain, to compensate for injury and disease and to adjust their activities in response to new situations or changes in their environment. Magnetics hold these neural nets in place, but can be rewired when new information, new energy is introduced into the system. When this happens, the nets demagnetize, and the magnetism holding the neural net in place dissolves, which allows for the synapses to disengage and look for new pathways. And this is the means by which we can change our beliefs, our thoughts, our conditioning. The phenomena of neurogenesis means that we can even grow new neurons. This is great news for the potential to improve and change, for what it can do for the aging process and for mood memory and cognitive function. So these are really, I wanted to bring this information to you. Just, I guess the average person is not knowing this information. And to me, it just gives us a sense of how incredible a human being is, how sacred we all are. So we have the great processor that is the brain, but we have an even greater processor, which is the heart. And I'm sure many of you know this one, that now it's been evidenced that there are complete neural networks in the pericardium of the heart, which are also taking in information and giving out information. And this has been developed, or much of this information has been developed by the HeartMath organization. So the processor in the heart is 5,000 times more powerful than the one in the head. HeartMath have done many experiments to show how our feelings affect the coherence of our system. And yet another brain. So we now have evidence of the gut brain, and it's how this brings information to the main brain processor. So with all these brains, you would still think, well, where is consciousness? Because consciousness is everywhere within us. It's not just these centers. Let's have a look now at the mind. So we're getting closer to where the key to all of this rests. So we have three minds. This has nothing to do with the three brains. Remember, the brains, the three brains, the one in the head, the one in the heart, and the one in the gut are processors. They're processing information and sending it to the various different parts of the body. However, here are the three minds. First of all, we have the conscious mind. So that's what we're aware of, and it brings us to information about our environment in the present moment. So this is the five physical senses and our behaviors and our actions based on what we take in from those five physical senses. Then we have the subconscious mind, where memories are stored, knowledge is stored. We have memory recall that is of information that is readily available. So this is the type of memory that, we have how to drive a car, how to, and allows us to do several things at the same time because we have a stored memory. It's a knowledge base of how to do things in the physical world, how to achieve things in the physical world. And it's easily recalled. So it's just underneath the level of conscious mind, because we're not always driving a car. We can do many things, and this memory just is underneath the level of the conscious mind, but can be easily recalled when we need it. However, the unconscious mind is the problem, because it is here where we keep all the limiting beliefs, all the discordant patterns, all the fears that are unpleasant and that we don't want to remember, all the traumas. Everything gets pushed down into this place that is unpleasant and that we don't want to remember. And this is extremely difficult to access because as we don't know, it's unconscious, we are not knowing it's there. We're not even aware that we're doing this. And we're not even aware of a lot of the patterns that are already built into it. So this becomes a problem. However, with regard to consciousness itself, consciousness is in every single cell of our body. So our awareness runs right the way through our whole physicality. It is not brain oriented. Yes, the cells of the brain will have some consciousness, but it's not where it is stored. It's a field of information that permeates our entire being. So let's just get to the crux here of the pieces that we don't want to remember and the things that we've brought in with us in our DNA, the traumas and the woundings. So the wounds are part of our DNA blueprint. And we, like I said before, we incarnate into specific circumstances, so they will be brought to our attention to remember that we came to neutralize, reconcile, and transmute them through acceptance, self-love, and forgiveness. So if you remember, I said that these traumas and wounds, these are the distortions that we purposely bring in, that the soul purposely brings in via the DNA, so that they can come to the surface and be dealt with. And our childhood conditioning will often reinforce them and add new prints. That's the problem. Because most of us don't know this is going on until very much later, or at all in our lives, unless we do the work around all of this. So we want to have a look at imprints and their associated pieces. So an imprint is a fragmented piece of consciousness that is split off from our whole being, so we're not aware of this. It is the constellation of the original wound or trauma, and it's an erroneous belief caused by the thoughts and feelings associated with it. They are usually hidden in the unconscious and come to light only when we are triggered by the experience of a similar frequency. So we have various ways of dealing with our traumas and our wounds, which comprise behaviors that look like masks or defenses, resistance, intention to not feel or to suppress feelings, and the shadow itself, which is totally unconscious. And there's a very important thing to remember about all of this. Even when we do become conscious of our imprinting, this doesn't mean that it's automatically cleared from our neural nets and our energy system. And that means we're going to continue to create a reality based on this programming. So even if you're aware, even if you become aware of it, it's still embedded in you energetically. So the origins of imprints are what we bring in initially. The imprints held in the DNA are the original wounds we have brought in as part of the collective karma to clear. They're not necessarily personal. This is part of why this is so important for us to work together. We incarnate into specific circumstances, so they will be brought to our attention to remember we came to neutralize, reconcile, and transmute. So I just want to speak a little to the different types of ancestral conditioning. So we can have parental conditioning through our ancestral lineage, environmental conditioning, societal conditioning, racial conditioning, religious conditioning, political conditioning, cultural, ancestral. It goes on and on. And so we get to the shadow, which is an imprint that is totally repressed, suppressed, depressed, and in the unconscious mind. And we usually require the mechanism of a relationship of some kind through the law of attraction and repulsion and magnetism to bring it forth into the light. And this is why we have so much conflict in our world at large. Because all the stuff that is buried deep inside each human being that they have no knowledge of, at some point is going to be triggered by another being. And we think it's their fault. When they trigger this stuff within us, we believe it's them that is causing us pain, when in fact it's already within us. The pain is already within. And they are simply bringing to us a frequency that is going to trigger into the pain that is already within us. But mostly what happens is that because, like I said before, most humans are so invested in the external reality, we think that reality, our external reality, is something that is happening to us, not something that we are co-creating with source energy. And this is the key to the whole mess that we find ourselves in our lives, in our world at large, in our relationships. This is the key piece. And it comes back to where we kind of opened the whole piece that said that, if you remember at the very beginning in the last presentation, this is why it is an inside job. It is never about the other person. It is always about us. Anytime we are in a situation that is causing us some kind of pain or suffering, it is about one of these hidden pieces that is within us. It's embedded in our DNA. and it's purposely brought in by the soul so that the soul can evolve itself. And in evolving itself, it helps all of humanity to evolve. So that is the shadow. Let's talk about the child within, because this is very much connected to the shadow that is unconscious. This is a part of our consciousness that has never been allowed to develop. It is repressed, suppressed, depressed, shut away, and this means we are projecting distorted energy outwards, unbeknown to us. And because we're projecting this frequency, this low frequency out, we attract back more of the same. So just let that sink in. This is why we suffer. This is why life can be painful. And this is why we often blame the other person. But in fact, when we realize that the other person is doing us a big favor by bringing our awareness to this, all of this, so that we can take steps to work with it and heal it, then it becomes another matter. Then it becomes a lesson in how to love and how to forgive and how to be thankful and grateful. Because what we're actually seeing is our frequency of consciousness. If the correct information is not flowing properly in any one of the 3 processes that we saw, or any one of the energy centers are blocked. Remember all the energy centers that are feeding the body. So we've got 3 processes. We've got the one in the brain, we've got the one in the one in the heart, and the one in the gut. So they can get blocked. So the incorrect information is not being taken in. Or any one of our energy centers, the chakras, that are feeding information into our awareness, if any of those are blocked or closed or running in reversal, all of this creates a huge distortion in how we manifest our external reality. So please just take a deep breath when we realize that we do create our external reality and we co-create it with others. And we've chosen to do this and bring these pieces into this density or this frequency band so that we can evolve ourselves and our race and the whole of humanity and the whole of our planet. And this is what the ascension is truly about. It's about the raising of our consciousness, raising our awareness, the healing, which simply means bringing back to the whole. So remember that these shadow pieces are pieces that have been so buried and so repressed that they have been shut off from the wholeness. And so we will, while all this is going on, how do we possibly experience our core essence? And this is the whole dichotomy of being a human. We are born to experience the fullness and the joy and the greatness and the wonderfulness of our core being, which you saw in the previous presentation. And yet we have so many distortions that need to be addressed. However, the great news is, and I hope that this has been great news when you've heard of how we can address this through changing the energy. We have the capacity to simply change our thoughts, to change our beliefs, to change our conditioning. And when we do, we change the whole thing right the way through the ancestral line. We change the whole thing. We change it on every dimension of our being. So it's well worth considering doing this work. And I want to say, I don't want to end this on a low note. I want to end this presentation on a high note. That never has there been a greater time to do this work, because of the frequencies that are available to us, that are coming in from the cosmic mind, coming in from the cosmos, to help us. This is what is happening currently as people are awakening. Problem is that they're awakening to situations, realizing that things are not the way they have thought they are, but people move into polarization, which is blaming the external for what is currently internal. So this is the next piece we're going to have a look at in the third and final part of this series, the path inward. So thank you so much for being with me and staying with this. Some of this is really hard stuff to realize and to get our heads around if we're not familiar with this. So thank you so much for still staying to the end, and I'll look forward to seeing you in part 3. God bless.